2.2 is about the palate. Roughly speaking, when I say the palate, I'm referring to the roof of the mouth. So the palate here refers to the roof of the mouth. It forms the roof of the mouth and separates the mouth cavity from the nose or nasal cavity. Now, as you can see here, this is the palate, and it separates the mouth cavity, this one, from the nasal cavity. Now, the palate has two parts: a hard one, which we call it hard, and a soft one, which is the soft one, or sometimes it's called the soft palate, and it has another name. We call it the velum. So this is the first division, is that the palate is divided into hard and soft. Now let's start talking about the soft palate or the velum. This one has two functions in speech sound production. It can either be raised or lowered. Now let's see what happens when this soft palate is raised and what happens when it is lowered. So the first function is when the soft palate is raised. Now this is the first function of the soft palate. Now here it can be raised so that it makes a firm contact with the back wall of the pharynx, and this stops the breath from going into the nasal cavity and forces it to go through the mouth only. So this is the first one. The first one, it means that the soft palate is raised, so no air goes through the nose and it all goes through the mouth, as we see here in this figure, in figure 4. Now in figure 4, this soft palate, if it is raised, these dotted lines, they show the two movements. Now we are talking about the first one. If the soft palate here is raised, no air goes through the nose and it all goes through the mouth to produce oral sounds like o, like a, like p, like k, like s. Now when I say these sounds, the soft palate is raised and no air goes through the nose, and all the air that goes through the mouth. That's why we call it, or that's why we call these sounds, we call them oral sounds. Now the second function of the soft palate when it is lowered. When the soft palate is lowered, now, as we see here, sorry, just a minute, as we see here, in the lowered position, the soft palate allows the breath to pass behind itself and up into the nasal cavity and out through the nose. Now here, this is the second movement for the soft palate. The soft palate here is lowered. Now if it is lowered, it blocks the air from going out of the mouth, but it moves where it will moves and goes and go out of the nose. So these are the two movements of the soft palate. They are either raised and all the air goes through the mouth to produce oral sounds, or they are lowered and the air goes through the nose to produce nasal sounds, like and Now this is the first division when we divide the palate into hard and soft. The hard part of the palate, the second one, this one, this one, can also be divided into two parts. The first one, as shown here in figure 5, the first one is the alveolar ridge, and the second one is the hard palate, which is the highest part of the palate. So the hard palate is divided into two sections, or the hard is divided into two sections, as shown in figure 5, the alveolar ridge and the hard palate. The alveolar ridge, this is its definition, is that part of the gums immediately behind the upper front teeth, and the hard palate is the highest part of the palate. So the second division is that they divide the hard into hard palate and alveolar ridge. Now the alveolar ridge, as you can see here, it is the part of the gums immediately behind the upper front teeth, and the hard palate is the highest part of the palate. Now each part is used to produce particular kinds of sounds. Now here, when the tongue touches the alveolar ridge, I can produce what is called alveolar sounds, like t, like these sounds. These are called alveolar because the tongue here touches the alveolar ridge. So the alveolar ridge is especially important in English because many of the consonant sounds like t, d, l, r, s, z are made with the tongue touching or close to the alveolar ridge. The hard palate, it is used in the production of specific consonants like yeah, but generally speaking, we use it as one of the criteria for describing and classifying vowels. So vowels like e, like a, they are described according to how far or how approximate they are, or how near they are to the hard palate.